Hello everyone, and welcome. In this video, I'll be talking about the country of Mexico within the context of the Fallout universe. With that being said, let's get into the video. Pre-war, Mexico suffered both natural and man-made disasters. In 2042, a major earthquake hit their capital, Mexico City. Due to the usefulness in reclamation and disaster cleanup, the Mr. Handy robot became quite popular in Mexico. By 2051, the United States had placed various economic sanctions on Mexico, citing political instability and pollution. The actual reason, however, was to protect business interests and the oil supplies within Mexico. These sanctions would severely destabilize Mexico, and the United States Armed Forces would enter Mexico to ensure the operation of oil refineries at the expense of Mexico. Despite these activities, Mexico remained a vital partner of the United States. Due to the aforementioned business interests and oil supply, businesses that operated before the Great War included Petrochinco, an oil company effectively owned by the American Poseidon Energy, and the publisher of a newspaper, El Periodico de las Hambrutas. And sorry about my pronunciation, because I don't speak Spanish. During and after the Great War, Mexico suffered widespread devastation. During the Great War, Mexico City was bombarded by nuclear weapons, and was turned into radioactive ruins, although not to the same degree as Washington, D.C. The collapse of society, however, resulted in total chaos, and the former capital was quickly taken over by looters, who formed the beginning of the Raider tribes. To escape the violence, citizens fled, some traveling across the now non-existent American border to locations such as Zion Canyon. The environment of Mexico, like that of the United States, was altered dramatically due to the Great War. Radioactive waste released from Control Station Enclave, otherwise known as the Enclave Oil Rig, after the Great War drifted down the coast of California into the coast of Mexico, causing irreversible ecological damage. The western beaches were dotted with toxic waste, and sea life irradiated by the dumping of toxic waste into the ocean. Ranger Chief Harlan mentions both night stalkers and bighorners are present in the region. By the 23rd century, the new California Republic had expanded into the former Mexican state of Baja. A number of settlers attempted to establish a settlement, but the inhospitable arid terrain led to a number of conflicts with the local population. One instance of this occurring happened at Rattletail, a small village consisting of 6 shacks built around a well. Rattletail sent reports to the NCR of raider attacks. The NCR in turn sent 6 NCR Rangers and Chief Harlan. It took them about a week to get there, and one of them died from a Night Stalker attack. When they actually did arrive, they discovered 5 men with .308 rifles defending the village, and over 24 dead bodies. While investigating the bodies, Harlan discovered that the people the villagers had killed were not heavily armored raiders, but simply locals trying to access water in the town's well. Seeing that the settlers of Rattletail were going to defend their well to the death, Harlan created a story about a group of 100 raiders ready to attack the village in order to get them to leave. He also said that the raiders had already killed 10 of his rangers. This convinced the villagers to return back to NCR territory. The former residents of Rattletail resettled in Anza Borrego and subsequently found success raising bighorners. Years later after the incident, the NCR deployed veteran rangers into the former Mexican region, to which Chief Harlan described as sending their most experienced rangers to chase ghosts down in Baja, creating an even more precarious situation for those fighting in the Mojave against Caesar's Legion. Known Mexican characters within the Fallout universe include Ramirez in Fallout 2, Taco Benedict Pacifico Juan Marian Ramirez, otherwise known as Taco in Fallout 2. Devs were definitely having some fun with that one. Big Genus Mordino and Little Genus Mordino, a father-son duo involved in a gang. And if we're going to talk about Mexican characters, we have to talk about what happened to the Mexican survivors in Zion Canyon. Those being Jose, Maria, Selena, Elena, and Carmen, as well as Pedro and Pablo. There were also 8 more unnamed males, 4 more unnamed females, and 9 unnamed children, as well as Maria and Jose being pregnant. On the 20th of September 2095, this group arrived in Zion Canyon. Randall Clark, a protector of Zion Canyon, noticed this group and kept tabs on them but did not interact with them directly. On the 10th of November, Jose broke his leg chasing a bighorner. Randall then gave them some antibiotics without them noticing, and that's as far as their interactions went. Ex-residents of Vault 22, who carried the spores from said vault but had not been fully transformed into spore carrier creatures, had eventually made their way to Zion Canyon, and on the 11th of February 2096, they gunned down the majority of this Mexican group. They then kidnapped Alina and Carmen, as well as 5 children, and they were kept within a pen. 2 days afterwards, on the 14th of February, they ate them. Yeah, they ate them. And that concludes their story. This means that they existed in Zion for a little bit less than 5 months, all in all. But sweet tripod, isn't there a Mexican character you forgot to talk about, you're probably asking? Well, yeah, of course, we have Raul. Now let's get into that. Raul Dajala was born in 2047. He was a delinquent living at Hidalgo Ranch outside Mexico City. He was a skilled marksman and mechanic. Both of these skills occasionally got him in trouble with the law, although the rest of his family kept him in line. The ranch survived the war due to its distance from the city, but the stream of refugees from different heavily affected areas proved difficult to deal with. The Dajala family was as accommodating as they could be, but they soon began running out of food as well as lodging. They had to start turning people away. The situation at the ranch quickly became violent and unstable. Raul and his father had to drive off the refugees by force. Later that night, after the Tahajas had gone to sleep, around 24 people arrived, barred the doors, and set the house on fire. Raul and his younger sister Rafaela managed to escape out a window, but his parents, grandmother, 2 brothers, and 2 other sisters were not as fortunate. Raul and Rafaela ran from the ranch, being pursued by the group that attacked their home. He killed the ones that came after them, but he left the rest be, not wanting to risk Rafaela's life for revenge. After the attack on the ranch, he knew it was no longer safe there, and the refugees wanted him dead so badly they put a bounty out on his head. Despite his sister's fears, he convinced her to come with him to Mexico City by promising to take her to see the cowboys. They thought they should go to Mexico City to look for help, not understanding the danger of radiation. Though it wasn't hit as hard as other places, by the time the Tahajas reached Mexico City, it could only be described as a radioactive ruin. The people of Mexico City got by through looting and had already formed the first raider tribes in the area. The Tahajas were living like scavengers, constantly searching for both food and medicine for Raul's burns. This is when Raul believes that his ghoulification first began. One day, Raul found a novelty costume shop looking for materials to bandage his burns with. He found an old vaquero outfit inside, still untouched, and wore it back to camp. Rafaela loved it. It made her laugh for the first time since the bombs fell. However, it was dangerous to be dressed this noticeably. Between such a distinctive outfit and his marksmanship skills, Raul started to become infamously known as the Ghost of Mexico City. While his reputation sometimes drove off trouble, it also attracted problems in the form of glory-seeking gunslingers hoping to gain fame by killing him. Although his reputation worried him, Raul kept wearing the outfit due to how happy it made his sister, and his legend in the area continued to grow. Feeling increasingly optimistic about his and his sister's chance, Raul started to play with the thought of carving out a permanent spot in Mexico City, but things would soon take a turn for the worst. Getting increasingly sick and weak from radiation exposure, Raul eventually found himself too ill to even get up and help scavenge with his sister. This illness was indicative of his early stages of ghoulification, and as such, she was left to provide for both of them. One day, after she failed to return from the market where she had been scavenging for food, Raul went in search for her, only to find her brutally murdered. She was so unrecognizable that he only determined it was her by a tiny scar on her knee. Raul tracked down the raiders responsible at the market and killed each and every one of them. Afterwards, he would leave the vaquero outfit feeling that it had brought him fame, but killed his sister. Leaving his entire life behind, including, as Raul often joked, his face, he wandered to the Gulf Coast and inhabited an unclaimed petrochinko refinery. He spent a long period of time there, thinking about his life so far. He found a petrochinko jumpsuit and began to wear it. Taking the name Miguel from the suit's Sovan name tag, he eventually arrived in the city of Tucson, Arizona, now known as Tucson. He settled there, becoming a mechanic and general handyman, his guns stashed away where they could do no further damage. After 75 years of relative peace for Raul, he met Claudia, a prostitute working in a local brothel who bore a striking resemblance to Rafaela. Spurred by his reminder of what he had lost, he took the time to look out for her, though for obvious reasons, never visiting her. This peaceful chapter in Raul's life, however, was bound to end, due to Arizona being overrun with raiders and tribals before the rise of Caesar's Legion brought relative stability to the area. Dirty Dave and his 6 brothers went to town looking for ammunition. Raul sold them ammunition, hoping they would leave now that they had what they wanted. Instead, they decided they wanted the brothel. Once in the brothel, Dave and his brothers killed 4 girls and took Claudia for their own use. Raul chased the brothers for 3 days, but by the time he caught up with them, Claudia was already dead. This sent Raul into a rage. He charged into their camp and killed all of them. However, he was not as youthful as he once was, having sustained several severe injuries, mainly bullet wounds. Raul stayed alive, however, in their camp until he got his strength back and walked back to Tucson and recovered, mostly out of spite. Feeling defeated and out of place, Raul wandered west to the Mojave, where he built himself a small shack in a quiet corner of the desert, east of New Vegas. He settled there, spending his days listening to black matter radio. One day he lost a signal being transmitted and decided to wander up to Black Mountain. To investigate, he offered his services to Tabitha the Nightkin, who broadcasted the transmissions. He offered to fix the transmitter, but to his dismay, Tabitha decided to imprison him for his efforts. She then threatened him to work for her, mostly repairing broken toasters for the super mutants, as well as performing repairs to her broken Mr. Handy and friend Rhonda. If freed from captivity by the courier, he would join the player out of gratitude, with a dialogue option to decide whether he goes back to his old gunslinging ways or helps in different ways. Raul is somewhat indifferent to Caesar's Legion, although he admires the security and order they've brought in their domain, although he could never join due to the fact that he's a ghoul. He feels the same way about the New Californian Republic, acknowledging their successes and failures like most pre-war governments. He has a vast amount of knowledge about Mr. House, as he remembers the media coverage pre-war about the eccentric man. And that was a lot to cover, but that is Raul's story. Now to get on with the last little tidbits about Mexico in the Fallout universe. The unique Fallout New Vegas weapon, Paciencia, has a Mexican flag attached to it. In Fallout 76, at Wixon's Shovel Museum, Mexico is mentioned as a location where the replica of a Neolithic shovel would have actually came from if it was real. And that plaque of the first shovel reads as follows. The first shovel originated in Neolithic times and was probably made using an animal's shoulder blade. This is a replica of what that shovel may have looked like if it were made in modern times in Mexico. And that is all we know about Mexico in the Fallout universe and every reference to Mexico in the Fallout universe. A quick note on the lore, however, it is mentioned that there are Night Stalkers and Bighorners in Baja. The only thing is that we only know that a ranger was killed while getting there, and we don't know how close he was to Rattletail, or how far Rattletail is into Baja, so it's not 100%, and also, those settlers went to another settlement, and then farmed Bighorners, but we don't know exactly where that is. So, they're probably in Mexico, specifically Baja, but it's not 100%, if that makes sense. So yeah, although it's quite likely, not only geographically, but from what we know in the lore, that Night Stalkers and Bighorners are in Mexico, it's not 100% confirmed. I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe. Tell me what you liked or didn't like about the video, what video ideas I should do next. I've been Sweet Tripod, and I'll see you in the next video.